The Indianapolis Colts were thoroughly embarrassed by the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football in front of a nationally televised audience. Where do we go from here? I'm not sure. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here by my co-host Drake Wally, also of Horseshoe Huddle. How you doing, man? It's good to see you after a few days away, coming back from Dallas. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really good. I've had a couple days to kind of digest what happened, and the better question is, how are you doing? You were there. You were
I
actually
was.
at the game.
I was taking in the action live there at AT&T Stadium. Enjoyed sightseeing in Dallas with my friend. Shout out to Andy Worrett. It was a great time. Um, it was a good experience up until the fourth quarter started. I mean, the Colts kept it tight. Uh, there were definitely some things I did not like about AT&T Stadium. One thing, it was big. I'll give them that. It was a very large stadium. Also got to take in the Big 12 championship game on Saturday, which turned into a hell of a game
Oh yeah,
between
that was good.
TCU and Kansas State. But yeah, it was big, but I didn't really like the layout of the stadium. You can't, if you've been to Lucas Oil Stadium before, you can pretty much get everywhere on the same level on each level of the concourse. You really couldn't do that unless you were on the very, very top level. Otherwise, things were blocked off. It was kind of hard to get anywhere. The personnel or the people working at the stadium weren't exactly the most friendly, I will say. And man, you would think with a history of the Dallas Cowboys winning 5 Super Bowls that the Cowboys fans would act like they'd been there before, but they act like beating a 4-8-1 Colts team was their Super Bowl. It really was. It was something to see. But anyways, I mean, overall, great time in Dallas, and it's good to be back. We weren't on air last night because I got in late, so rested up. We're in now. Time to break down this game. But before we do that, go ahead and go follow us if you haven't already. I say this every episode, but it's very important to us. Go ahead and follow the Horseshoe Huddle on Twitter at Colts on FN, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube, because when you do that, you hit the note, you get those notifications all set up. You hit the bell so you know whenever Drake and I go live, and so that way you can join in on the conversation. Because man, do we have a lot to talk about tonight. So, Drake, without further ado, let's get into it. Stats Matt says I blame the fourth quarter on Andrew flying down there. Hey man, if you want to blame it on me, sure. I'll take the blame for the Matt Ryan Ducks and everything else that went on with that game. Tom Brady, after squeaking out a big win on Monday Night Football, is joining us. He says, "What a weird game. One of the worst fourth quarters I've seen." Buddy, you're not wrong. So
Yeah.
hey, congrats to the Bucks on getting that, squeaking out the victory last night. But Drake, we're going to give our gut reactions, and we're just going to lay it all on the table tonight. Colts dominated by the Cowboys 54-19. It was 21-19 going into the fourth quarter, and then the Cowboys ripped off 33 unanswered points, the most in franchise history for a quarter. 1 point off the NFL record for points in a quarter. So at least the Colts have that going for them. But Drake, you're sitting there Sunday night watching the game from your home. What's that reaction like?
My reaction for everything was fantastic until kind of like you mentioned the fourth quarter, and it just seemed like I think if I remember correctly, it started off of a Ryan interception, then it was like an Alley Cox fumble, and then it was another Ryan. I mean, it just seemed like, as the fans and as I was personally like losing almost life force for that game, it seemed like the team was losing it with the fans. Like Ryan was yelling, which I was telling a buddy earlier today. I've never seen Ryan so mad at himself and frustrated. So his like reactions pretty much, sums it all up for me.
Yeah, it was difficult to watch. And honestly, I mean, we've been talking about it, or at least kind of I've been hinting at it maybe in my pieces, that I felt like this team has been done for a while. And watching that game, if you didn't think the team was done before, you pretty much have to now. The season is lost for the Indianapolis Colts. This team is not going to the playoffs, nor do they deserve to go to the playoffs. They're a bad football team. It's as simple as that. They have issues at quarterback. They have issues along the offensive line. They have coaches. They have protection issues in general. It was you just saw the life, like you said, you saw the life really go out of this team in the fourth quarter. And it's not, I don't think it's anything like they're not playing for Jeff Saturday or they're not playing hard, but that confidence is when they were just thoroughly getting beat down by the Cowboys, drive after drive after drive, whether it was on offense or defense. It just seemed like they knew deep down that their season was over. And it was sad to see. It's something we've known probably for a while now, but it was just that moment that hit them in the fourth quarter. I noticed it too, that it was just like they're like, man, we're done.
Yeah, they followed almost in Matt Ryan's emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and it was from the defense to the offense to the special teams. It was everybody, and even when you saw Jeff Saturday over there, it's far removed from what he looked like at times during the Eagles game and throughout the entire Raiders game. I mean, you're dealing with a guy who is just sad. He looked sad over there, so it might be permeating all the way through. And even a little tidbit, I don't know if people saw the brief video on Twitter of Jim Irsay getting into his cart to go back to his flight. He was not talking to anybody. He was staring straight ahead, straight down. He looked like he had just gotten his candy stolen if he was a kid on Halloween. I mean, that man looked pissed off and like
Oh
he was
yeah,
really internalizing a lot.
he really did. I mean, he looked like the same as those Colts players did on the sideline or even in the game. He looked like he was just had this blank stare on his face, like he was looking through everybody, like we're in bad shape. We really are. It was like it finally hit Jim Irsay. I mean, he's the guy that's always optimistic about his team. Always is going to say his team's going to do well. The biggest fan of his own team. Lives, eats, breathes, sleeps Colts football. That's Jim Irsay.
That's right.
But he realized, I mean, we're done. We're done. And that's just the reality of the situation. Stats Matt says, I think Ryan knows his arm isn't there and he's mad he can't do what he used to do. I think it's probably setting in for Matt Ryan too, because he's not an idiot. He's a smart guy. He knows what he can and can't do out there. And seeing all the mistakes that he made, I mean, right before we went live, I actually got done going through the film, and I'm going to post my findings tomorrow on horseshoehuddle.com. But I went through the film and I thought the exact same thing. This can be our segue of getting into the offense, Drake. We can start talking about Matt Ryan and how he performed. I mean, we'll just take a look at the stats. 21 of 37, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, and a quarterback rating of 59.8. Probably the worst game he has had in a Colts uniform, I would say. Responsible for 4 turnovers. It's just, I mean, the topic of my piece after the game, late Sunday night, Matt Ryan's done. I keep saying done, but that's just it. And he just reaffirmed the fact that the Colts have to move on from Matt Ryan in 2023 and possibly even after the bye.
Yeah, that's I've been seeing things like, hey, right now the 49ers, they have a QB critical situation where you want someone behind Brock Purdy. Could it be Matt Ryan with Kyle Shanahan? That's like probably not, because Matt Ryan, it's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. Is it a little worse because maybe the Colts' continuity on offensive line is completely scrambled? Very possible, but you can just see it. You can see that he's panicking almost, and he's been on teams like last year with Atlanta that were crumbling around him, and he still eked out 7 wins. Regression doesn't happen in the NFL like it does in NBA basketball or in baseball. It's not slow and gradual. It happens off a cliff. Peyton Manning in 2014, I recall him throwing like 33 touchdowns and 14 picks. Next season, he has 17 interceptions and 9 touchdowns, and somehow with a defense wins a second Super Bowl. It falls off a cliff. And I think it happened maybe when Ryan inked the contract. And, you just don't know till it happens. It's no one's fault,
Right.
but he's definitely, I think he's at the end.
Yeah, and it's been obvious on film for a couple weeks now. I mean, Ryan is panicking in the pocket. He's sensing pressure before it's actually there. And I mean, that's attributed to the fact that he's been sacked 35 times in 11 games, over 3 times a game on average. Matt Ryan's being beaten into the ground. And again, he was sacked 3 more times on Sunday night. 2 of those were on one of them. The first one was definitely on Jonathan Taylor for failing to pick
Hmm.
up the blitz. The
Yep.
second one could either have been on Taylor. He definitely didn't get a good blitz pickup, but also it seemed like the communication wasn't there between the offensive line and Jonathan Taylor or Matt Ryan calling out where Jonathan Taylor should be, because he went to go pick up one guy. Quentin Nelson ended up picking up that guy, and then by the time JT saw the free rusher, it was too late. The third one, I don't even put that one on Matt Ryan, because nobody was open down the field. The offensive line, I think it was Ryan Kelly, just got beat. But what I do put on Matt Ryan is, again, fumbling the football. Hold on to the damn ball, and
Yep.
he just hasn't been
Yep.
able to. And then we get into the interceptions. Most of those interceptions, at least 2 out of the 3, were because of poor velocity. I mean, the first one you could say maybe Alec Pierce got hit a little bit early,
Yep.
but and he maybe should have caught that. The ball was also a little bit high, a bit too out in front of Alec Pierce. But the other 2, it's a late read to Kylan Granson, and the ball is kind of floating in the air, gets picked off, and the other one is the same thing. Ball is floating up in the air, the corner breaks on it and is able to get the interception. So when you don't have that arm that can drive those throws down the field, it's going to be really hard for you, and it makes this offense even more predictable. And you see those defenses really converging on that, because the Colts are trying to do this quick passing game, get the ball out of his hands quick, not really throw it down the field much. Defenses know that, and that's why the offense is just sputtering more and more and more as the weeks go along.
Well, and going, to build off of that, Jonathan Taylor didn't even average. I mean, he dang near averaged for the Colts 4 yards, but they were keeping him within check, and so that forces a guy with low arm velocity to have to use that arm even more. And even on the short passes, they're just not popping out of there like a quick zip like you expect. And that's why you look at a guy like, not to bring it up against Matt Ryan, but you look at a guy like Phillip Rivers, and it makes you go, it blows your mind, like with a little tiny release, how a guy like that was able to zip the ball in, knowing he didn't throw it deep very well. Ryan, it just hasn't made that same connection Rivers did. Rivers was as washed potentially as Ryan. He just had the mind and understood, maybe a little further, who knows, but it's unfortunate to see. And it's kind of like one of those, we need to get him rid of us and we need to get us rid of him type situations where you just got to look at each other and go, this just isn't working out.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing is, I'll first bring up Stats Matt's comment. Sad part is you saw it coming as the game went on. You saw his balls floating and the DBs were getting closer and closer and knew it was coming. And I noticed that too. I'm sure you did as well, watching at home, Drake. And I think the biggest difference between Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers, and I want to point this out because I think it's important as to why Matt Ryan has regressed as far as he has. Phillip Rivers in 2020 definitely did not have the strongest arm. In fact, I think that Phillip Rivers' arm probably was, I think Matt, or I should say it this way, Matt Ryan's arm is probably still better than what Phillip Rivers' arm was in 2020.
Oh,
The
yeah.
biggest difference is Phillip Rivers was so elite, and I truly mean elite, like probably top 3, at least in the NFL, as far as anticipation. He knew where the receivers were going to be, threw the ball well before they were even out of their cuts, so the receiver basically turn around, the ball would be right there. That's why Phillip Rivers had so much success in this Colts offense, because whether Frank Reich is here or not, the same offensive staff is pretty much here, minus Marcus Brady, Nick Sirianni. It's the same offense from probably 80% to 85%. It's the same offense. Matt Ryan's anticipation skills, I mean, they're just not there. The game looks like it has sped up for Matt Ryan. He's late on his reads. He's panicking in the pocket, and there's guys open down the field. Not on every play, but going through the film, he's got Paris Campbell open in the middle. He's got Jelani Woods open in the middle. The area where Matt Ryan excels the most, the middle of the field. And he's panicking, trying to feel that pressure before it's even there. And he's dirting the ball, or he's checking it down to Jonathan Taylor, or he's throwing it at Taylor's feet just to get rid of the ball. It's just astounding to see how much he's regressed. And like you said, it's fallen off a cliff because as the year has gone along, it maybe have started getting a little bit worse, but it's just completely plummeted within the last few weeks.
Well, real quick, even though, personally, I don't think he's the best broadcaster, but I did have to respect his opinion. Chris Collinsworth actually mentioned something very interesting. He said, Dan Quinn knows who Matt Ryan is, and he knows that Matt Ryan is going to respond the most from that internal pressure, not the pressure from the tackles. I was talking left and right about you got to worry about Micah Parsons. You got to worry about DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, they got 8 guys they can just throw at you.
We
But
both were
he
talking
brought
like
that.
that.
Oh yeah, but he brought that pressure from right in front of Ryan's face, and any quarterback, especially a pocket passer, is going to react much more violently, if you will, like with his arm and reaction time than he would from maybe the outside because you might sense it better. Whereas you're running away and he just can't run. So
Right.
that's what happened. So
Yeah, exactly. And Stats Matt says JT was doing well, and then we just kept doing the same play every first down, and his average plummeted. That one drive, I think he has like 4 runs for negative yards on a scoring drive. That's something that I've noticed too. And I don't know if it's necessarily Parks Frazier's fault or not, but the Colts are in a box. They're limited what they can do offensively because of the quarterback. And you could say what you want about the pressure. The pass protection wasn't that bad on Sunday night. It really wasn't. I mean, going through the film, there were plenty of times where Ryan has a clean pocket or a clean enough pocket that as an NFL quarterback, you should be able to stand in there and make those throws. And he just didn't. And you talk about those interceptions with a fully functional arm that Matt Ryan used to have. Those are completions for first downs, and you continue to move the chains. Those aren't turnovers. It's that arm, and I mean, maybe the shoulder injury isn't all the way healed. It very well could be that the shoulder was playing a role in it. But at the same time, when you're out on that field, you're expected to play at your best, and you're expected to play at a high level, whether you're dealing with an injury or not. And if the injury is really impacting you that much that you're going to be turning the ball over like that, you really shouldn't be out there. And it's just plain and simple. So I feel for Jonathan Taylor because Jonathan Taylor made some good plays, especially on some screen passes. I think once they keyed into it and they dared Matt Ryan to beat him deep pretty much, or even beat him in the like from 10 to 20 yards, he just couldn't do it. So, I mean, the one bright spot, we'll talk about him here. One bright spot on the offense, probably Alec Pierce. I mean, Alec Pierce put in a hell of a game. Let's talk about the rookie wide receiver. I know you had an article after the game talking about how the Colts offense needs to use Alec Pierce more. What'd you see from number 14 on Sunday?
Well, just his high ball ability, his ability to go back shoulder and adjust almost it's a reactionary adjustment. It's not a thinking adjustment. His body just reacts to deep throws so well. And when they were throwing deep, they even connected, which I actually say in my article that Ashton Doolin's touchdown, it was a deep throw. You stretch a defense, literally, you pull those linebackers off of the line of scrimmage. You make the defense have to spread out on the front to rush the passer in anticipation of those deep throws to try to prevent them from happening, especially if they connect. So they've only been using Pierce. We've talked about this. Pittman almost has the same build as Pierce, and they just don't do it. And he's the only guy that's getting targeted deep. And look, for a rookie, I'll toss my hat in there saying he's done pretty dang good.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say that on that touchdown throw from Matt Ryan to Ashton Doolin, I mean, Matt Ryan did a hell of a job with that shoulder fake to really bite Trayvon Diggs in there, but Ashton Doolin turned Diggs into a barbecue chicken on that
Yeah,
play.
I remember you telling me that.
Absolutely burned it. But yeah, I mean, I thought Pierce played a good game. There were some times where there was a miscommunication between Ryan and Pierce that I saw on film, but the Cowboys really said they took away Michael Pittman. Pittman only had 2 catches, I think. Let me just check the stats real quick. 2 catches for 16 yards. Pittman was a non-factor. And when you're the number 1 wide receiver, I will put that on Pittman. Yes, you need to do a little bit better. I know that they probably had Diggs on you, and with a safety help over the top, there was a lot of bracket coverage on Michael Pittman. But at the same time, if you want to be that bona fide number 1 wide receiver, as talking about in the upper echelon at your position in the league, you got to find ways to beat that and still win your one-on-one matchup. So we're gonna see what happens there. But yeah, Alec Pierce thought he did a great job. The deep plays, the back shoulder throw on that throw to Pierce, did a great job of turning in the air. That's they've been using that as a specialty of his, and he's just been coming through week after week after week. You love to see what Alec Pierce is bringing. You hope that continues, and I think once the Colts do get a different quarterback in there probably next year with a better arm, you're going to see that happen more and more, and you're going to see Alec Pierce stretch the field and really use that on a game by game basis.
Well, I'll just say what I'm sure every Colts fan is wishing they could see is some high ball ability and some deep ball ability from Michael Pittman, because then you could take one on one side and one on the other, and you're essentially forcing the defense to cover two halves of the field deep. I mean, that would open up guys like Granson. That would open up receiving routes for potentially Taylor and even some Campbell, who actually had more receptions than Pittman and yards by almost 3 times. So, you look at that and you're looking at Pittman like, look, you're the volume receiver. All right. You were last year and you're supposed to be this year. At some point, you got to say, you got to act like it.
Right. Stats Matt says Pierce's air yards per target is double Pittman's. They've been using them in completely different roles. Pittman's been underneath guy. He's been the guy that they want to get to on third down on those slants, and Pierce has been the deep ball threat. That's kind of how it's been. So you probably want to try to switch things up, throw some deep balls to Pittman, because I mean, he's 6'4". We see he's got a huge leaping ability. He can still go up there and get that football as well. Bailey Savage makes an interesting comment. Colts are sticking with Matt Ryan for a whole year. I don't know if you mean all of next year or just for the whole of this year, but in my opinion, they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. And it's not a matter of right now winning games, because as I said in my article, wins and losses don't matter right now. This needs to be an evaluation period.
Yeah.
In my opinion, after the bye week, it's time to put Sam Ehlinger in there. And I'm not saying because I think Sam Ehlinger is the answer. I honestly don't. And I think he'll prove that. But at the same time, that gives you 4 more games with Sam Ehlinger rather than just 2. That's a 6-game sample size. You can get a better evaluation of Sam Ehlinger to see what you have in him and see what you have moving forward. And again, like I said, do I think he's going to be the answer or the franchise quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts? Absolutely not. I don't. But at this point, what do you have to lose? Go out there and let the kid play, see what he's got, and that will give you a more informed evaluation and more information about your quarterback room heading into 2023.
Well, and look, where appreciate the comment a lot, Bailey. One of the things that I'll say is that I was so hyped for Matt Ryan. I mean, when he came here, I got a Matty Ice, literally says Matty Ice with 2 horseshoes for the M. Okay. Like I was ready to go, and the T's were frozen in ice. So, I mean, I was ready to go for this, but I really do agree with Andrew here. I think that it should be either Nick Foles too. If you really feel like you want to try to keep that pocket passing, cool. I think you should at least give one of these 2 guys an opportunity to lead the offense, probably Sam Ehlinger. And if he pops, he pops. Yippee, you got your quarterback potentially against 3 of the 4 hardest games you can potentially play in the position the Colts are in. So, I mean, if he wants to show up, now's the time.
Right. Stats Matt echoes that. Not just Sam, but Woods, Cross, Johnson, Rodgers, Brown, Flowers, etc. All the younger guys. It's time to evaluate what you got on this roster and what you got on this roster moving forward. That's exactly right. And you're starting to see that with Bernhard Raimann. I mean, Bernhard Raimann has had some good games. He played pretty damn well on Sunday night. Going up against Micah Parsons. I mean, Parsons didn't have a sack. There was one play, and when you look at the film, it looks really bad. It does, because DeMarcus Lawrence goes underneath him, checks him with both hands, and Bernhard Raimann goes flying backwards right on his butt. It's not a good play. But when you look at his game as a whole, Bernhard Raimann was the highest graded a player on the Colts according to Pro Football Focus. He did a heck of a job, didn't give up any sacks, didn't give up any pressures or QB hits, I should say. 1 pressure, I think. Did a great job, and you're seeing that him starting to get more and more comfortable. It's just now more about that play strength, and I think another off season will do very well. But let's switch gears here, Drake. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. I mean, things weren't great to start. I mean, but through 3 quarters, you had them at 21 points, and the Colts had just scored a touchdown. You thought maybe they had a chance, and then everything unraveled. Why, in your opinion, did everything unravel so bad in the fourth quarter that led them to giving up? I know it's not all 33 points. I'm trying to remember but it was at least over 20 that were given up by the defense. So why do you think that was the case?
I'll go back to an interview after the first quarter when the Cowboys were down with Mike McCarthy. They asked, what do you got to do? He goes, look, we know this team. He looked as calm as a cucumber. We know this team. We know we got to get to the quarterback, stop the run. We'll figure it out. He said something very similar to that. I think Jeff Saturday got outcoached. I honestly think that the better coach will almost always figure out a way, whether it's in the first quarter early or late in the game, they'll figure out a way to capture the momentum, especially when they're at home and they know how to stop your team. And their defensive coordinator used to coach the opposition's quarterback and knows his weaknesses too. So I think there was a lot of coaching that was against Jeff Saturday and Parks Frazier. I think they have a lot to learn. It's such a hard learning curve, but I also think that, as I said here, they played well until the fourth quarter, and they kept pressure on Prescott, holding him to just 20 completions for 170 yards. People probably don't know that from seeing CeeDee Lamb's big plays and Michael Gallup's 2 dink and dunk touchdowns, but they kept Dak in check. They really did, outside of 3 touchdowns.
They did, and I think it was because I don't know if it was necessarily pressure on Prescott. They did create a little bit of pressure. The 1 sack by Kwity Paye. Welcome back. You were much needed.
Look who got the sack.
But I mean, I'm all in on Kwity Paye. I love that kid. He's going to be, as long as he can stay healthy. He already has more sacks this year than he did all of last year. So keep racking those up, Kwity. But it's just when you're constantly having to go back on the field after 4 consecutive drives of turnovers by your offense, of course you're going to struggle. Stats, Matt, thank you, buddy. 34 total points off turnovers, 27 of them in the fourth quarter. Worst starting spot was their 47. Other 2 were inside our 30, plus a defensive touchdown. Our D was shot. That's the point. That's the point I was trying to make. The defense was shot. And that's why when they kept going out on the field, every time they showed them on that huge jumbotron there at AT&T Stadium that stretches from 120-yard line to the other, that's what I'm talking about when they said they just looked defeated. The Colts defense looked like they came out and they're like, are you kidding me? We have to go out here again. We're just after we were out here because of another turnover. And I'm not saying there's friction within the locker room because, of course, the guys have all been pros. They're never going to throw any of their teammates under the bus. But at the same time, it was the turnovers that killed this defense. And it really did. It really made them struggle. It's as simple as that. And this defense they've been solid to good, pretty good all year long, but they can't carry that weight. They're not the 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens. They're not an elite all-time defense. It's no surprise that what happened in the fourth quarter when you turn the ball over 4 consecutive drives.
Well, and pair that with this. Ezekiel Elliott, 17 carries, 77 yards, and a tutty. Then you got Tony Pollard, 12 carries, 91 yards, 2 tutties. So together you have 29 times that big Dallas offensive line is because pass protection, I'm sure everyone knows this, it's dropping back as opposed to run, which is moving forward, which is wearing down that defense. That's 29 times for a whopping 168 yards and 3 touchdowns. Remember when we said Dallas sets up everything with the run? They did the exact same thing. And then on top of those turnovers, like Stats Matt pointed out, they're getting ramrodded by receivers and keep on going, getting punched repeatedly in the head. I mean, that's a lot to take on fourth quarter.
It really is. And so you look here at the total yards. I mean, the Cowboys ran it 34 times for 220 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 6.5 yards per carry average. You're not going to win when you're doing that. And a lot of that
4 runs too.
Right. A lot of that did come in the fourth quarter. But at the same time, I mean, when you can't stop the run, and that's why I think that's a big reason of why Dak Prescott didn't have a huge Dak Prescott-like game. he didn't really need to. They just relied on the running game, wore this defense down is even farther than they needed to, and came out with the W. So again, I mean, just a all around a bad performance by the Indianapolis Colts, and it was just amplified in the fourth quarter. And I would say that the Colts need a bye in the worst way because they're not playing this weekend, which they do. They need a bye in the worst way. The Colts having a week 14 bye is criminal, and I hate that this is like the second year in a row that they've had to play 12 or 13 games without their bye. But at the same time, I don't see much changing after the bye. I really don't. They have games against the Minnesota Vikings, one of the top teams in the NFC, the Chargers at home on Monday Night Football, which the Chargers can be up and down, but again, they still have Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler. They've got talent on both sides of the ball. Then you go Keenan Allen's back. Then you go to the Giants, a team that right now is in a wild card spot fighting for the playoffs. They're not going to give up a game to the Colts. Then you finish off against Houston. So, and the Colts, while you say Houston has imploded, the Colts tied Houston week 1. So that's, I mean, honestly, that's not a guaranteed win. Everyone thinks the Colts are going to win, but Davis Mills could light up the Colts for 250. Damian Pierce could go for $130. And by that time, Sam Ellinger might be in and go for 130 yards with an interception. So you just don't know what's going to happen. Gosh. But at this point, and I don't want Colts fans to be all gloom and doom, but it's just time to move on to 2023. And I think we have to accept that at this point. And you need to start thinking about who's going to be the next head coach for this team. Jeff Saturday, Jim Harbaugh, other candidates, which we'll write about on the site. Will Chris Ballard still be here making the decisions? What do they do about Matt Ryan? Do they release him? Do they trade him? Does he just flat out retire? Who's going to be leading the Colts at the quarterback position in 2023? Because it's not going to be Matt Ryan. Is it going to be Sam Ellinger, Nick Foles, first round draft pick? Who knows? But it's going to be an interesting offseason, to say the least. There's a lot of questions that will be answered, and I think, like I said before at the beginning of the show, if you didn't think the season was done for the Colts, I think you have to now, unfortunately. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for Cowboys, Colts fans. I mean, you gotta, it's a loss is a loss. You could have the week to kind of relax. Don't have to worry what the Colts are going to do because Colts are on a bye week. There is some Colts news and some good Colts news. So, let's get right to it, because it is good Colts news. So the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominees for each team were announced this week, which players say is the most prestigious award in the NFL, because not only does it talk about your excellence on the field, but it talks about your excellence off the field as well. Shaquille Leonard was the Colts nominee. It will be the Colts nominee this year for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award for his work with his Maniac Foundation. If you don't know what all he does with that, please go look that up. It's fantastic. He helps provide meals to children. He provides programs for kids that love math, love reading, to try to boost up and get kids to really accept that and really join in on the love that he has for those subjects with him. So it's a great program. Great job by Shaquille Leonard. Hasn't really made too big of an impact on the field due to injuries, but he's still making a hell of an impact off the field in the community of Indianapolis. So congratulations to Shaquille Leonard.
Well, and even it just shows that even when he's not on the field, I mean, if you ever see him on the sidelines, this is a guy who's coaching his teammates. He's actually in the coaching, like right there with the defense. He's ready to go all the time, all Colts nonstop. So, gotta say, as proud as I am of Shaquille Leonard, I'm not surprised that he got nominated.
Right.
So.
Right. And the thing is too, I mean, that was one of the first things I noticed, is that Shaquille Leonard was out there at midfield for the coin toss this week against the Cowboys. So he's still traveling with the team, even though he's not there on the field. He's there in spirit, and really not in spirit, because he's there physically at every game. He still travels with the team. He's at every practice. He's trying to get back on the field, maybe taking a smarter approach to it, allowing his back to fully heal throughout this offseason, which I think is good. But for people that think that Shaquille Leonard just got his money and now is mailing it in, you're not paying attention. You're simply not paying attention, and you don't know the Colts. You don't, or you shouldn't. You don't know Shaquille Leonard, I should say. But let's wrap up the show, Drake. Colts player of the game. I think this one was pretty easy, but I'll let you give the guy who you think was the Colts player of the game.
It was Alec Pierce. It's Alec Pierce. And just to very briefly say what I was going to say earlier, to Colts fans that are sad, to Colts fans that are like, man, this year stunk, Jelani Woods, Bernard Raymond, Nick Cross, Zaire Franklin, Alec Pierce, I'll even say Paris Campbell. There are a lot of reasons, including Alec Pierce, to be excited for the future because these guys, given the opportunity, all they've shown is that they can produce. So get ready.
Yeah, I agree. Alec Pierce has shown that he is going to be a bona fide wide receiver in this league. I think he's easily going to be the number 2 wide receiver to Pittman in the future of the Colts. Jelani Woods, like you said, he's flashed, and I think you and I both are in the category of Jelani Woods needs more snaps, needs to be out there more, and it's a travesty that he isn't. Bernard Raymond, I think you're starting to see that it come together. That trial by fire, while there's had some growing pains, like they said there would be. Give him a couple more games this season. Give him a full off season in a NFL weight training program to really build up some more muscle to go up against these monsters that are NFL pass rushers, and you're going to reap the rewards. So yeah, I agree. I'm going with Alec Pierce. We've got the same player of the game this week. I'll just name off his stats again real quick for the people. 4 catches, 86 yards, a 21.5 yards per catch average, and then the touchdown to go along with it. So Alec Pierce, you did your thing on Sunday night. Congrats to you, buddy. Yeah, thank you for being one of the only Colts that were able to do that. But that's it. That's the show for tonight. Stats Matt's going to give it to Bernard Raymond. Hey, can't argue with that. Also a good performance by the rookie. So
another rookie, yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, that's our show for tonight. Again, go ahead and go follow us at A Colts Podcast. Tim Milliken said, hey, good to see you, buddy, as we're logging off for tonight. I guess I need a big shot of that optimism you guys have because my tank is low. So, okay, I'll try. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tim.
Woo! Just keep the faith, Tim. There's some good things in this Colts team still, while it may not seem like it. But yeah, again, please go follow us, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow Horseshoe Huddle on Twitter at Colts on FN, subscribe to Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube, and hit that bell so you know when we're going live. Really, really, really appreciate all of you guys tuning in, all of you guys that have read our work. We just had one of our best months ever in November and in October for the site, for the podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. We love having you guys on here. Love discussing things about the Colts on the podcast. And while the Colts don't have a game this weekend, we'll still be back Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Might do something fun on Thursday night's episode. So come and join in. Come in early so you can get your comments in. But until then, have a good one.